Good evening and welcome to this coach webinar on attending your first event, the before, the during, and after. So we are almost at the top of the hour, so we'll wait another minute or so just to let everyone who's registered sign on, and then we'll start our presentation. So we welcome you here. We want to let you know that this will eventually be recorded and put up on in the article in the library. So, but we are excited that you guys are here in person and able to answer or ask questions if you want to. Alicia will touch a little bit more on what that looks like when we start, but for now, just hang out another minute or so and we'll start shortly. So we are at 7 o'clock now, and we are about halfway there for our attendees. So maybe we'll give everyone a minute or two more. I see lots of Florida names on that list, so I'm excited to have you all here. That's the state that I cover. And then we have Alicia here, and she covers the Northeast. She's got so many states, I can't say them all. And then Emily, she covers Indiana. And Chris covers up north, the Dakotas and Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct. In Wisconsin, Michigan, up in the upper Midwest area.
There you go. All right, let's just get going with this. Alicia, why don't you take us away?
Welcome, everybody. Before we get started on our content, I do want to take a few moments to remind everybody about our best practices for the webinars. Cameras and microphones will be disabled during this webinar just due to the number of people that are signed up. Please use the Q&A to submit any questions. We're going to try our best to answer all of the questions at the end of the webinar. PD certificates and resource sheets will be available at the end of the webinar as well. And there are going to be some QR codes throughout the presentations. If you scan the QR codes, you'll get some more information with those QR codes. We like to start all of our training sessions off with reminding everybody what our mission and our vision at RECF is. So our mission is the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation's global mission is to provide every educator with competition, education, and workforce readiness programs to increase student engagement in science, technology, engineering, math, and computer science. And our vision is we see a future where every student designs and innovates as part of a team, overcomes failure, perseveres, and emerges confident in their ability to meet global challenges. We follow a regional support model, regional support manager model. So this is a map of our regional supports. So you can find your state on the map. If you don't know who your RSM is, you can also go to the support page in Robot Events and search by state. But this is the map of what we currently look like. You'd see me with all of those Northeast states, as Ulrika mentioned. We have a support map for international coverage as well. So this is a map of where our international RSMs are located. And briefly to touch on and remind everybody about the different programs that we offer. We have our VEX IQ competition, which is for upper elementary and middle school students. We have our VEX V5 competition, which is for middle school and high school students. We have our JROTC program, which is for high school students. We have our VEX U competitive robotics program, and that is for college and university level. And then we have our VEX AI competition program, and that covers high school as well as college and university. So we're going to talk a few things about what goes on before you attend an event. We're going to start with the before. There are some resources I do want to mention. If you have not, as an educator, if you have not gone into VEX's website yet and looked at their STEM labs, I highly recommend that you do that. They have a lot of great STEM labs available to help you with a variety of different things to help the kids learn how to build things and code things. But they have a new resource this year, which is all about competitions. And those are the VEX Competition 101 STEM labs. So it is a great thing to send your students to check out prior to going to their first competition. It lets them know all about how the competitions are structured. It's kind of module based, so they don't necessarily have to go through all the sessions. You can pick and choose which sessions within the STEM lab you want them to do, or they can do the whole thing. And along those same lines, another set of resources that you can have the students do prior to ever going to their first competition is drive team training. Drive team training is located on our training website. They can go through the drive team training and learn all about the game and the game manual, and it'll take them through different modules. A note of caution about the drive team training is they will need to complete whatever modules they start in one session. Once they sign off, they won't be able to go back and print their certificate, and it doesn't keep track of their progress because we're not able to collect their email addresses due to student safety concerns. So when they log in and they complete a module, they have to go ahead and print that certificate right then and there. They don't have to do all modules in one session, but they will have to keep track of which modules they've already completed because the system will not track their progress. But it's a great way for them to learn all about the game manual and about the game for this year. So I'm going to hand it off to Chris, and he's going to tell you about some other things to consider prior to attending your first competition.
Thank you. So before you go to your first competition, it's good to go over some of the big rules. So a lot of our rules and policies are just like laws. Just because you don't know them doesn't mean you still can't get in trouble for them, right? So you want to make sure that you're familiar with the game rules and some of our big policies. And some of the really big ones are our code of conduct and our student-centered policy. So our code of conduct affects not just our students, but it also affects our coaches, our event partners, everybody that's involved at the event, even our parents sitting in the stand. So making sure that you're familiar with the code of conduct and how it affects the people there, how they're acting. So it affects how parents are acting in the stand towards the workers. It affects how the kids are acting at the field towards the referees. It affects how the coaches are acting towards their kids. So making sure that you're familiar with the code of conduct and how it affects everybody at the event. Same with the student-centered policy. What does that mean? Our program is a student-centered program. What does that mean? So making sure that you and everybody on your team and all your parents are familiar with that policy. And the student-centered policy is really basic. The students have to do everything. The students are the ones that are building the robot. The students are the ones that are programming the robot. The students are the ones that are designing the robot. The students are the ones that are developing the strategy. The students are the ones that are working with their alliance partners to come up with strategies in between matches. The students are the ones that are responsible for all those things. So you as the adult should never be the one that are dictating strategies during tournaments. You as the adult should not be working on the robot or programming the robot. So making sure that you're familiar with those policies so that when you're at a tournament, you're not getting in trouble with the tournament officials. That goes into this next part of it as well. Just behavior guidelines while you're at a tournament. Again, this is for everybody at the tournament. It goes for coaches, it goes for parents, it goes for guardians, it goes for grandpas and grandmas and everybody. Making sure that everybody's familiar with the rules and how those things all work. So we've got these great QR codes. Like we said before, if you don't have time to look at these now, you can go back to these video recordings later and check out these QR codes and check out these great flyers and show these to your parents, show these to the guardians, so that way they can all be familiar with kind of some expectations as they go to their first event. Big picture planning for before you go to your event. So you as the coach, you as the mentor, your job, since you're not building the robot, since you're not programming the robot, your job is that clerical stuff. Your job is to get your team registered on robot events for the season. Your job is to get that team paid for the season. Your job is to file if you're a school-based team, your job is to file that school-based paperwork so that your team is legit and ready to go and start registering for events. Your job is to find events on robotevents.com. Which ones do you want to go to? How far away are they? Get approval from the school, arrange transportation, get permission slips. All those clerical tasks, that's your job as a coach, as an administrator. Registering for the events, completing payment for the individual events, and completing any kind of permission slips, release forms, including the REC consent form that every student and mentor needs to have on file before they go to their first event. That's your job. The kids are the ones responsible for anything dealing with the robot. As far as payments go, you need to get that team registered before December 19th. That is our registration deadline. This does not mean you're having that team in your cart. Having it in your cart does not count as being registered for the season. That means that the team is registered out of your cart. You have an order number ready to go, and you've got a PO that's processing or a check that's in the mail, whatever the case might be, but it's out of your cart and you have an actual order number before December 19th. Now, payment options. For us, you can pay with purchase orders through a school. You can pay with a check. You can pay with a credit card. Just be aware that if you do pay with a credit card, there is a credit card fee, 3% fee. You can pay with an ACH payment or a wire transfer. This year, there is a new rule with overdue payments. So if you have an overdue payment sitting in the system that's 90 days past due, it will lock your account so that you cannot register for anything new. So keep that in mind. If you have a season registration or even event registration that's 90 days past due, it will lock it so you cannot register for anything new. So keep that in mind as you're working through your events for the season. As you're registering for the events, this is kind of what an event registration page looks like over here on the right. You will see this little drop down. As long as you're logged into Robot Events, you'll see this drop down on the right side. You pull that drop down and you'll see all your teams that are capable of registering for that event listed there. And you can check a little box right beside each team, and that will allow you to register those teams for that specific event. Then you will go to checkout. Again, I want to stress that when you do checkout, putting them into your cart does not count as checked out. When you put them into your cart, that will save you a spot in that event for 5 minutes. After those 5 minutes, you will lose that spot and somebody else can come and take those spots. So you need to actually make sure you check out to generate an actual order number if you want to actually save those spots. Now, if you have not done your school paperwork or your nonprofit paperwork for the year when you did your initial season registration, you will see an error message right beside your team and it will stay grayed out. And this is kind of what the error message looks like. It will say right beside the team, missing approved organization document. So this year we have a new type of tournament called a school-based tournament. So we are requiring a new document proving that you're attached to a school. If you don't have that document uploaded when you register for the season, you can upload it later, but if you haven't uploaded it, the system will not let you register for an event. So this is the error message you'll see by your team if you have not uploaded the proper document. You need this if you're a school-based team or if you're a nonprofit team. So this is what it'll look like if you have not uploaded the proper documentation. To upload it, what you would do is you click on My Account at the top of Robot Events. You click on My Teams on the left side, and then by each team to the right, you'll see a button that says Documents. You click on that by one of the teams and upload it. All you have to do is upload it for one team in that org, and it will cover all the teams within that org. The document we're looking for the schools is we're just looking for a letter from your school administrator saying that this organization is tied to the school, and that will cover your entire organization. Again, we just need one letter covering the entire org. We don't need one letter per team. Just one letter for the entire org is fine. All right. Once you get and you are ready to actually pay for your teams, you have some different payment options. Now, if you are going to choose to pay with a purchase order, or you need a little bit more time to figure out how you're going to pay for it, you will want to choose the pay later option. This will buy you a little bit of time to figure out how you're going to pay for it. But you still need to complete the checkout. Do not leave these sitting in your cart. Again, that only gives you 5 minutes before you lose that slot. So choose pay later and complete the checkout process. Choosing pay later will actually generate an order number. And then later on, you can come back and change the payment method. And you can change it to a purchase order, or you can change it to a credit card or a check and complete that process later. But this will actually complete the order so that it locks you into that slot so that you can change the order type later. Another big thing that we need to remember to do before we go to our first event is making sure that every team member, including coaches and mentors, has a consent form on file before you go to your first event. Again, this is every student, coach, and mentor needs to have a consent form on file before you go to your first event. Now, you can get to these consent forms by, again, going to My Account, and you'll see a list of teams on your dashboard. Over to the right, you'll see a button that says Consent Forms. You click on that button, and you can get a preloaded consent form that already has the team number attached to it, which makes it very, very easy. Digital consent form. Or if you need a paper one, there's also a place there where you can get to a paper one for those folks that need paper copies as well. You'll fill those consent forms out. You'll have the parents fill them out for their kids. You'll fill one out as a coach, and then you'll have those digital consent forms on file. You just need to do it one time for the season. Also, that button will show you who in your organization and who for that team has turned those consent forms in so that you can track it. But again, you need one for every student, every coach, every mentor for that team. As a coach, I always recommend that coaches should do it for every team, just because you never know which team you're traveling with. So I always recommend coaches do it for each of their teams. So that way, no matter what team you're traveling with, you are covered with a consent form for that event.
Thanks, Chris. We appreciate all of that information. I'm going to jump in here really quick and talk about needs-based accommodations. If you have a student with special needs that might need accommodations during an event, there is a process to follow. Please start by filling out the accommodation form in enough time before the event. The request needs to be submitted a minimum of 6 weeks in advance for accommodations for the game or event. And for a deaf or hard of hearing accommodation, the timeline is a minimum of 12 weeks in advance. The RECF will review the request, and if needed, a representative will reach out to see if we can work with the accommodation within the confines of the game or event. If your accommodation is approved, you will receive a letter that you must bring with you to the event. You must also submit a copy of this letter to the event partner at least 2 weeks prior to the event. Your RSM is not notified of the student's accommodations, but feel free to reach out to them if you need help reaching out to the event partner. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to Emily now to continue with prior preparation.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how to prep for your first event. So on the Robot Events page, for the event where you registered, there is going to be a judging tab to let you know what interview and notebook judging formats will be available at your event, because they do vary and the event partner decides on that format. So you just want to make sure you're aware of that before you go to your first event. If it's a remote option, you'll want to make sure you look at the event details on that page to know when your submission deadline is. Event partners also will typically put concession options in the event information on that same Robot Events page. So if you're wanting to know about lunch options or what food will be available at the event, you'll want to look for that. And if you aren't able to find that, there is a way to contact the event partner directly from that Robot Events page. So just use that contact event partner option on the event page to ask any questions about the event. Also reviewing the code of conduct and the student-centered policy prior to your event with all participants. That means all the teachers, all the students, all the parents that are planning to attend. It is crucial to maintaining a positive, respectful, and ethical conduct for all of the event participants that will be there, and including the attendees. before going to an event, it is very important that you look at the game manual. So this is even before you start building your robot. You really need to look through the game manual because it also has rules about building your robot in there. So you'll want to make sure you adhere to that. You'll always want to look at the latest updates that it has, including any of the rules, build requirements, and scoring for matches and skills. A good way to help your students learn about the game and the rules is having them do that drive team training course that Alicia mentioned earlier through our training website. There's also a student-friendly version if you're an IQ coach. IQ students can use that kid-friendly version to really learn all the rules. Now, remember, it is just a smaller version of it. It's not the full game manual, so it's just a place to start for you, but you will want to make sure as a coach you do read through that game manual with your students so they do know everything, but it's a good place to start for the youngest robotic team members. And so why do we want students to understand the game manual? Well, Rule T3, which is only the drive team members may contest a referee's ruling, adults are not permitted to intervene. So with that rule, any questions about scoring of a match has to happen on the field with the team before they leave. So as many of you know, or if you don't know and you're new, adults aren't allowed on the field. Adults aren't allowed on the competition floor. So students really have to understand scoring and understand the rules so that if there is an issue that they're having, they'll be able to explain that and talk with the head referee or the scorekeeping referee about those decisions. So the official Q&A is where all registered teams have the opportunity to ask for official rules interpretations and clarifications. Each program has their own game manual Q&A. If you go on Robot Events and you can see it on that image, you'll go to the competitions tab at the top and then that will drop down and there will be a game, well, you'll select your program. So if you're IQ or V5 or whatever program you are, and then it will have a game manual Q&A as well as a judging Q&A tab within there. And that's where you'll go for your specific Q&A. The judging Q&A is universal. That's going to be the same for IQ and V5, but the game manual Q&A is specific to programs, so you'll want to make sure you're on the right one. And also be mindful that only registered teams, certified event partners, and certified head referees are the ones posting questions on that Q&A. It's also really important to check that the Q&A doesn't have your question in it. So make sure you check thoroughly before posting your question because it is likely that someone else probably had that same question and it may already be posted and answered. Also, significant Q&As will be added to the game manual, those updates. So you will see them there, but even in between the scheduled updates, a team needs to keep track of the Q&As that are posted. You'll want to do that really weekly. You want to make that a habit just to stay up to date so teams aren't surprised when they get to an event that something was discussed and something was changed. So some helpful event apps that you can download. There is a game manual that's available that you can print. There's a PDF version that you can print and actually take with you, but you can also download the Vex Hub app on a phone or tablet, and that is for iPhone, Apple, or Android. The version, the one I just said about the Vex Hub, that is available via that QR code. And it is searchable when you download it, and it's a really good resource for your team. And if there's ever a discrepancy between a printed version and the digital version, the digital one is always the one that takes precedent because it is the most up to date. The other app that is great to download is called Vex Via, and that's going to allow you to see progress and results at competitions. And it can allow you to see upcoming matches, so it keeps the schedule. So that's something really good to have when you go to your event to actually keep up with what's happening at that current event in real time. And just keep in mind that Vex Via will give you the times of matches in the local time zone, so wherever you're at. So if you are coming from a different time zone, You'll want to make sure that you're actually in the live app and didn't take a screenshot or something, because it's probably not going to be accurate because the time would have changed. A pre-event checklist is very important. So you'll want to build in some time for your team to create a checklist similar to this one of what you might need to bring to an event. So you'll want to discuss with your students what should be on the checklist, what are your needs, and what needs to happen before the event to be prepared for when you show up at the event. So things like updating the latest firmware, who's going to take charge of the license plate and make sure you have those. What roles is everyone going to have at the event? And accountability. So how are you going to get these things done? And pro tip, label everything. Anything you're bringing, label it, because you're bound to lose something or leave something at the field or somewhere random. And if you've ever been to Worlds, we have so many things left behind. And if a team number is on it, very easy way to find the owner. And these are really some of those soft skills that we are trying to teach our students. And it's really how the program is designed to help students learn these things. So put the onus on them. Now, we have covered a lot of what you need to know to prepare for before coming to the event. So now we're going to talk about what happens at the event. So on the day of the event, there's some steps that you'll follow. This is very typical and traditional of most events. So first, you're going to check in. The event partner needs to know that you're there, so you need to check in immediately upon arrival. Next, you'll need to find what we call the pit, or your pit, and that's your home away from home on the day of the event, and it's usually a table with some access to power. It will also have your team number on it, and the best practice is to just have those numbers in numerical order so it's easy to find. So that's kind of a rule of thumb you can use when you're trying to find your pit at larger events. And please don't move the numbers around. They're there for lots of reasons, for you to find your pit, for judges to find your pit, the event partner to find your pit. It's just an easy way so everybody's on the same page. Next, you'll need to get your robot inspected. So one or two of your team members, you don't need the whole team, just one or two, will bring your robot, the controller, the battery, and the license plate to the inspection table to get that robot inspected. And all robots have to pass that inspection prior to competing. And then finally, there's usually a meeting where you'll go over logistics at the event. And each event is slightly different, that have different things they want to cover. And then you'll have your qualification matches, your judged interviews if there's judging at the event, and then your robot skills challenges. And then the day concludes with finals or eliminations, depending on what program you're in, and then usually sums up with awards, and then you go home. So I just talked about how all robots have to get inspected. So before you can compete, the robot has to pass inspection. So there's some QR codes there if you're in the V5 program or the IQ program to scan to get that checklist that is on the screen right now. So if a robot does pass inspection, or does not pass inspection, it cannot compete. So all robots have to pass to be able to compete. So a good best practice to have with your teams is to print out that robot inspection checklist and inspect your own robot before you even get to the event. And it's not only good practice to make sure you're going to pass inspection, but just to really understand what the people that are inspecting your robots are doing, so that you understand when they are doing things, what they are doing, so you familiarize yourself with that. And just make sure that everything fits. So if it is larger, if the robot is larger than the measurements, your robot cannot compete. So that's one of the big things they're looking for. And it's better to learn that lesson at a local event before you get to a championship event. So always measure your robot as you're building. So if you change something, measure it, because you don't want to get too far ahead and then realize, oh wait, we're way too big, and it just won't work out. Even something like cable sticking out is considered outside the measurement. So attention to detail is going to be very important when it comes to inspection. Next, plan your time. So it is the team's responsibility to figure out their schedule for the day. And believe me, as a former coach, it's very easy just to step in and help your team. But don't do the planning for them. Students, even the youngest of elementary teams, I coached third graders, they can plan time. And it's a soft skill that they're going to need as they continue through school and eventually go into the workforce. So it's great to learn that young. And that doesn't mean you can't work with your students and help them figure these things out. The picture that's on the screen right now, that's actually a form that was used by an elementary school in Georgia. And they had discussed as a group all the parts of the event and what was needed during that day. And the teacher wrote it down for them and made that nice little grid. And the students were then able to complete that, and they had accountability and took ownership and responsibility for that. And they figured out what they needed to do to track and make sure they stayed on schedule. And so, speaking of staying on schedule, you need to be mindful of when skills opens. It is different for every event. So, you want to help your students consider what their skills runs will look like, how they'll fit those in with their matches. But again, don't do it for them. Just help scaffold them to help them figure out how to do that and why it's important to do that. And it is okay for a team to politely tell the judges when they come around if they have a match coming up that they need to get to. Just ask them, can we meet you right after? We have a match we need to get to. We want to stay on time. We'll meet you right after. But you do need to understand and be mindful that the judges have a schedule too. They have a lot of teams that they have to get to, so they also need to stay on schedule. And then the thing to remember is just to go into your event with a game plan. Don't wait until you show up to devise a plan. Get that done prior to showing up at the event. And your match schedule. So this is why it's so important to check in right away, because your event partner can't run the match schedule till all the teams are there. So a qualifying match schedule will be distributed to all the coaches and teams once all the teams are checked in. And so this schedule shows the randomly assigned teams that have been paired in an alliance for each qualifying match. For tournaments that have multiple fields, the schedule will also tell you what field you're going to be on, so you know where to go for queuing. Some pro tips are to find your alliance partner before the match to develop a strategy plan or a game plan, and to ensure that you're all arriving at the match on time so that everything can stay on track. And you'll want to make sure you're keeping track of those match numbers and getting to that queuing spot early. A good rule of thumb is like 2 matches prior. So you don't want to wait until it's your match to start walking to queuing. You kind of want to be over there, because even if the schedule has one time, if they're ahead, they're going to go to the next match. So you just need to make sure what queue they're on compared to the time they're on. And then we get to your qualification matches. So for the IQRC, the IQ program, each 1 minute teamwork challenge match consists of 2 teams operating in an alliance to score the maximum amount of points. Both teams earn that same combined score, and that score averages with the other qualification match scores earned by the team with the other alliances that they're with, and then that determines the rankings for the finals matches. So be mindful too that the lowest score is dropped from this calculation for every 4 qualifying matches that are played. And then for the V5RC program, each 2 minute matches consist of 2 teams as the Red Alliance and 2 teams as the Blue Alliance. So there's 4 teams together for the V5RC program. Teams put red or blue VEX license plates on opposing sides of the robot to match whatever alliance they're on for that match. And each match consists of a 15-second autonomous period at the start, and then followed by a 1 minute and 45-second driver controlled period. And the alliance that outscores the other, they're the winner of the match. And then we move on to robot skills matches. So during most events, teams will have the opportunity to participate in robot skills matches. So these are usually held in a separate area on a separate field. near the competition field. Sometimes they're done on the main field in the morning, but more than likely they're going to be in a separate area on a separate field. Teams should check the event agenda on that robot events page that you registered on, or any communications that are sent out by the EP or the event partner, to know when the skills fields will be open and closing. Sometimes they close during lunch, sometimes they're open during lunch. They will always be open until the last qualifying match. So there's not a certain time they're going to close, but you'll just want to pay attention when they open and when they are closed throughout the day, so you're aware of that and can plan accordingly. Most events run robot skills on a first come first serve basis, so teams should plan how they're going to get those in to ensure that they get all their matches, the opportunities that they receive completed. So there's two types. You have driving and programming, and each team can complete 3 of each. So you can get 3 driving and 3 programming at each event. So it's a lot of matches with your qualifying matches too. So again, planning and scheduling is important. That's why we're pushing that. But be mindful that robot skills matches are optional. But some awards do consider robot skills rankings. So the robot skills rankings at both events, they can be used to fill championship spots. So always do skills. That's my advice to you. Always do skills. Okay, so for tournament finals, at VIQRC events, tournament manager will automatically assign alliances for the finals matches based on teams' rankings from those qualifying matches. The number of teams that participate in the finals matches is determined by the event partner based on guidelines that are specified in the game manual. And you can always ask your event partner those questions or look at the game manual for those policies. Each alliance competes one more time to achieve a maximum score, and the 2 teams in the alliance that scores the highest score in their finals match are declared the winners of the tournament. Now for V5RC, after the qualifying matches end, the top scoring teams choose their alliance partners for elimination matches. So well-formed alliances pair teams that complement each other so that they can outscore their competitors during those elimination matches. One member from each of the top scoring teams serves as a team representative to participate in the alliance selection process. The team representative should consult with their teammates about which teams could make the most beneficial alliance partners for their strategy. So please have your team watch. There's a QR code right there at the top QR code. It's an alliance selection video. It'd be very helpful to watch that before you go to an event if you are unfamiliar with how alliance selection works. In elimination matches, red alliances and blue alliances face off against each other in a bracket format, which more than likely will be on a screen for you to see. And the winning alliance moves on to the next round until one alliance has won over all the opponents. And any ties result in additional matches until one alliance wins and advances. If a team is disqualified during an elim match, then their alliance partner is also disqualified and the match is recorded as a loss. The bracket continues until winners are moving on to the tournament champion and that winner is declared. There are tournament rules that can be found in section 4 of the game manual if you want to know more information on that. And then there's also that bottom QR code that will go to a library article about tournament ranking calculations that you may find useful when you go to your event. And so awards are going to vary from event to event. Each event will have different awards based on the spots they're given or if they have judging or not, lots of different things. So you'll want to check the awards tab on the Robotics events page that you registered at to see which awards the event is offering and which ones qualified to the event regional championship, because those will vary as well. Teams can earn performance-based awards and judged awards at an event, and teams can earn multiple performance awards, one judged award, or a combination of the two. No team may earn more than one judged award at a single event. And several awards do require a notebook, and the Excellence Award, Design Award, and Innovate Award are required at any qualifying event with judging. The other awards are not mandatory, but can give qualifying spots. So if a team receives a qualifying award, the primary coach will receive an invite via email to register for the championship event. This invitation does expire, so it is important to register right away, even if you have to select pay later, like Chris mentioned earlier, and then check out and change that later. But registering pay later is a great way to ensure you do that in a timely manner. And then on to engineering notebooks. So the engineering notebook is a really good process for students to follow to create it. Should it be, it's going to be in alignment with the REC Foundation Student Centered Policy and the Code of Conduct. And it is required that students abide by the principles of academic honesty in their engineering notebook, which includes citing and crediting materials and ideas that are not their own and explaining how they are using the information in their design process. They should not ever attempt to claim information that is not their own. Teams from the same organization that submit notebooks with common content make it extremely difficult for the content to be verified as being representative of the students on each individual team. And the misrepresentations of student work is considered a violation of the REC Foundation Code of Conduct as well as the game manual. The use of AI in any form for creating the notebook is specifically prohibited. We want the students to learn concepts, to be part of creating things, even stuff that might not seem fun, like building a robot, but our programs are designed to facilitate education through competition. And the engineering notebook process is a large part of that educational process. It's fun to bring home trophies, but the academic skills and the life skills and all those soft skills that they're learning by doing the work is really what we're trying to get them to do. Award criteria. So the Excellence Award recognizes overall excellence in both the Judged Award and Performance Award categories. So in order to be considered for the Excellence Award, teams must be at or near the top of all engineering notebook rankings with a fully developed notebook. So follow-up interviews may be needed to determine what the team submitted in their engineering notebook is also in an alignment with how they performed at the event with their robot. And at the conclusion of those qualifying matches, robot skills and autonomous, teams must be ranked in the top 40% of teams. This award is required for all judged events, but if no team meets the requirements for it, the award is not given out at the event. The Innovate Award recognizes an effective and well-documented design process for a novel aspect of the team's robot design or gameplay strategy. This submission of an engineering notebook is a requirement for the Innovate Award, and the team must indicate to judges where that aspect can be found in their engineering notebook. There is a Innovate Award submission form, and that is what they're going to complete and place immediately behind their engineering notebook front cover. And that's just the universal location. Doesn't matter what notebook format you have, that's where it needs to go so judges can find it. And teams can only submit a single aspect, one thing, for consideration at an event. And the team who earns the Innovate Award should be among the top contenders for the Design Award that day as well. And the award is now required at all judged events. On to spectators at the event. This is one of the best parts about an event is the spectators in the stands. And events are free to the public, including spectators, which includes family, siblings, teachers, mentors, community supporters. All are encouraged to attend. And it's not only exciting, but it's a great way to secure potential sponsors or maybe future volunteers that enjoy their time at your event. Now, students and children should be under the supervision of a parent or a respective adult at the event for the entire event. We cannot just drop kids off and let them hang out. There are scoring and game resources available for any spectator wishing to follow any, including the Vex Hub and the Vex Via apps mentioned earlier. Anybody can download those. They're great to keep track of the event. And the Vex Hub again offers that game manual and scorekeeping capabilities. And then Vex Via will allow you to see the progress of the event and how it's happening in real time. While at the event, spectators must stay in appropriate areas at all time. Please make sure you're paying attention to any stanchions or signs that say team only. And spectators should stay in spectator viewing areas while students are playing the matches. Coaches should be cultivating a supportive and encouraging environment to treat all students and mentors and students and spectators with respect. And all events are student-centered, meaning that students must be the only ones designing, building, programming, troubleshooting, all of those things with their robots. The students' hands should be the only ones on those robots. And this does encourage critical thinking, problem solving, teamwork skills, all those things that we're trying to get them to do to develop their independence and confidence in all their abilities. So that's what basically happens at an event. And now Ulrika is going to share with you some things to remember after you attended the event.
Thank you, Emily. I appreciate all of that information. That was a lot. But it's not really over yet, because after the event, after those awards are given out, make sure that your students throw away their trash, clean up their pit, leave their area just as good as they found it. Students should be responsible for all of that. Make sure that you all pick up and check all of the equipment, label batteries and controllers and tools before you go to the event, and take stock of what you brought with you so that you can leave with the same stuff at the end of the event. And if you're missing anything, please ask a volunteer for help to find it, or maybe reach out to the teams around you and nicely ask if maybe they've packed something that has your name written on it. Make sure you pick up your engineering notebook if it physical copy was turned in. And then maybe more important than anything else, thank all the volunteers, or a volunteer, at least one on your way out. It takes a lot of people to successfully host events, and a quick thank you is much appreciated. Um, so after you get back home though, let's take that first practice when you all get together again and kind of look at what did we learn as a team from this event. Um, it's always something that you can learn from the event, or something that you can, prepare for the next event. What about other teams? Did you work on a strategy with them? Did you see how they used the time, how they were managing their times? Maybe that's something you could look at. Other robots, were there drive bases that worked really well? Were there some mechanisms that you thought worked really well? Subsystems? We don't want you to go over obviously and take a picture or copy exactly what they did, um, because that will go against the G4 rule. However, you can look at how that mechanism worked and then try to make it better yourself. These are the things that we want the students to do. That's the design process. Um, how did the interview go? What kind of questions did they ask? Did we answer those questions well? Did everyone share? Did everyone have a chance to share? How do we know? How can we move from one person to the next? These are discussions that you can have after you've done an interview. Um, and what about the matches? Did we practice with the other teams? Which strategy worked the best that we used? So all of those things are really good things to look at. And then it could also be really good to talk about your frustrations. Could the team have affected the outcome? Like, did you forget to bring a charged battery to the field? Or was it just something that went wrong and the other team's robot fell apart and you couldn't have done anything? Um, so those are, and one of the things, it was it just one of those things that happened? And that's kind of part of learning how to deal with the disappointment. It's another soft skills. So, and then what are some realistic next steps? Do you have time to rebuild, for example? Do you have the skills? What iterations can be made? And set some goals for the team. take a look at some of the available goal setting techniques like SMART goals or Gantt charts. We talked about the VEX STEM lab in the beginning there. Their last unit on both of those competition STEM labs cover reflections on your first competition. And so I encourage you to take a look at that. But most of all, though, as with all learning moments, there's also room to celebrate successes. What went well? What should you continue for the next event? And set some goals. For some, the goal might be to win the tournament champion. For some, it might be to score more points than they did the previous tournament. All of those are great goals. They are set for your team. So, and all teams are different. So as we round this webinar up, I'd like to remind you of these important takeaways from today's webinar. After your teams are registered, visit robotevents.com to register your teams for events or sign them up for events. Events fill up quickly, so it's important to register for events as soon as possible. If you need help finding events in your area, you can use the map available in Robot Events, or you can reach out to your RSM. And remember to check out when you register your team or sign them up. Create a checklist before the event of things that you need to do. Work with the students to find one that of the parts and the things that they can do, but also for you as the coach. Just set your own checklist up of things that you need to do. It's a good idea to study the game manual and review the official Q&A with your students before each event, especially if there's been an update. And especially now, make sure all your students have looked at, have discussed the update to G4 and G5. And make sure to review the notebook and Innovate Award submission instructions so that those processes are smooth for your team at the event and you have that notebook uploaded at the correct date and time. And as always, we aim to provide you coaches with resources to support your program. So a PDF of all these links that we have talked about tonight will be available either if you fill out the QR code later on to receive the PD credit hours, or it will be available tomorrow on the RE listing. This webinar will also be recorded, and as soon as we have that ready to be uploaded, it will also go on the RE listing as well as in the article about the webinars on in the REC library. But if you find yourself needing additional support, please reach out to your RSM. We are happy to help. That's why we are here. And if you don't know how to find your RSM, this is how you do it. You go to robotevents.com, you go to resources, you go to support, and then the map basically of the globe will show up, and you click on where you are at, and it will show you who your person is for that area, your RSM. And a couple important dates just on the horizon to be aware of. For those event partners wanting to host an event, you need to make sure your event is in by November 1st. November 14th is the fee waiver deadline if you're eligible for that. December 19th, don't miss that date. That's the team season registration deadline. The last date to host an international event region championship is March 1st. The last date to host an event regional championship in the US is March 15th. And then the VEX Robotics World Championship is in April 21st through the 30th. And also don't forget about our live webinars, continuous ones. On Thursday, October 16th, we have our next event partner one. It's on code of conduct and student-centered processes and procedures. Right after that is also the head ref webinar. So if you are a head ref, an IQ one, you might want to learn some of the best practices and lessons that have been learned from early season events. On October 23rd is a judging webinar and Q&A. That's a live interactive webinar, really good to understand the judging process. And then also our next coach training webinar will be in November on finishing your season strong, some additional opportunities that are available like online challenges, IRHS, and some of those additional things that we are doing. So we also don't want to miss letting you know about the Coach Academy. The Coach Academy is something new for this year. It's a new resource, and it's a two-part system for both new and veteran coaches. It was created to further support our coaches and allow for more in-depth discussions. So it's a free online asynchronous set of courses that utilizes the Moodle platform at training.recf.org to assist coaches on staying up to date with the latest RECF policies, procedures, and resources. So you can dive deeper into various topics at your own pace while you earn a verified coach badge and professional development for completing courses. And courses were just added that will help you learn how to apply for needs-based accommodation, become more familiar with the qualifying criteria, and understand the participant release form process. During the month of October, those weekly discussions or office hours will focus on answering questions that you might have about tonight's webinar, and it will provide additional resources for coaches. So on October 6th, it will cover your first event on the season. You can ask more questions there. On October 13th, we'll cover the coach's role at events, including what to do and not to do while you're there supporting your team. And the last October office hours will include information on how to educate the adults on your team about the code of conduct or how to handle issues that might be arise. So that's a great resource if you have time. Those are all taking place on Mondays from 1 to 2 Central Time. So we have time for a little bit of Q&As here. And then Emily, you can tell us a little bit more after this about the PD certificate, but let's answer some of those Q&As if we had some. I saw one about how strict we are on the robot dimensions or how for inspection, and those are very strict. If you are bigger than the measurements tell you, you will not pass inspection. So make sure that that robot is built within specs, and you will find all those in the game manual.
Yep, and I even went so far as to list off the VEX IQ sizes. So for VEX IQ, it's 11 inches wide by 20 inches long by 15 inches tall. This is rule R5 in the VEX IQ game manual. And so the robot has to fit within that volume. So it can be smaller than that, but if it's any bigger than that, you will not pass inspection and you will not be able to compete that day. So until you fix the size and then come and get re-inspected. So it is very, very strict. And then V5 has its own set of requirements for size. So each program has its own size, and every year it changes. So every year there's a new game manual with new rules on sizes. So you need to even though they might be pretty similar, you need to know the rules for that year.
And your event will have sizing tools, and that's how they determine the size. And you can actually create those sizing tools yourself too. So that's how you can measure your robot in the same way your inspectors will at your event.
And then we also got a question on if consent forms need to be printed out and given at team check-in. And we actually, event partners cannot take printed out forms at the event. So they need to be uploaded into your Robot Events account. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do those there, but do make sure that they are uploaded into the account before you go to the event.
Yep, so you can do those digitally right off the bat, so that there's no paper involved. Or if for some reason you have to do paper, you can have them fill it out on paper, and then you can scan them back into your coach's dashboard and attach them back to the team. But yeah, once they're attached to the team digitally, they're there all season. You will never submit paper copies at a tournament.
And then there is also a question on any suggestions on what to bring for the pit area, extension cords or any other tips.
When I was a coach, I always liked to bring a power strip with a long cord on it. So I had these what's called a power reel. So it's a 25-foot cord that would reel up into a 4-port power reel. And so that was really handy because you never know quite how far away from an outlet you might be. That's one thing that I always liked to have along, just to make sure that way I could charge laptops, I could charge batteries, controllers, things of that nature. So yes, power strips is always nice to have. That was one thing that was always really nice.
And then Alicia, if you just want to advance to the next slide, we can continue to ask or answer Q&As if they show up, or if there's any that have been showed up. But let's get this up there. You can go ahead and scan this QR code or type that URL into your browser, and that will get you to the form, the feedback form, to offer any feedback, as well as access to the PD certificate if you'd like that, and the resource document Ulrika mentioned just a few slides ago. You do want to be mindful of the email address you use, because if your school tends to block things, you may want to use a personal email address so you ensure that you do receive it. And then also, whatever name that you put into that form is going to be the name on your PD certificate. So please be mindful of whatever you want that certificate to say. That's what you need to put in the name slot on the form.
Yeah. One thing that Emily brought up during her part of the presentation was just making sure everything's labeled with your team number. She said this, but at Worlds we'll have 35 controllers turned in, and if they don't have a team number on, since they all look the same, they don't get turned back to teams. So make sure your team number is on there so that you can get those things back. So that's always a really big thing. Make sure that team numbers are on everything.
Yes,
Any
and we
other staff members have tips of things that you brought to tournaments that were always kind of helpful?
Snacks, I think, is a good hit.
But
As long as you can bring outside food in.
Yep, exactly. Pay attention to your event page policies, because some allow food and some don't. So if you ever don't know, ask the event partner, contact the event partner and ask them questions.
I always brought a folding chair, since I didn't have much to do as a coach. I always brought a
camping
folding chair
chairs.
so I could sit off on the side and let the team do their work. So.
And I mean, a lot of teams will have posters and have things about their robot if people want to, learn about their robot and things. But again, really, it's just about the kids learning and competing. And yeah, you really just need power and a table to work.
Well, we are at 8:01, so in order to honor everyone's time, I think we are gonna say thank you and goodbye, and just remind you all about the Coach Academy. If you have some questions that pop up, go and look at that, and go visit with Brandy and one of us and have us answer your questions, or just reach out to your RSM, because that's what we're here for. Thank you so much, and good night.
Good night, everyone.